Welcome to Patty's Aquatics. So in this video, what I plan on doing is another installment in my The Truth About Dirty Tank series. Now my first one, the downfalls, I'll put a link above. I really go over some of the potential issues that could arise with having a dirty aquarium. I also talk really about those variables, that there are so many variables throughout our aquariums, whether how you set them up, how you maintain them, how you keep them, that not one tank is the same as the other. And because of that, some people may have perfect tanks from the beginning. Some may have issues that pop up, and I show some of my experiences. One, helping maybe potential new hobbyists who are trying to get into dirty tanks to see some things they may encounter if they set one up. And then two, try to help any other hobbyists out there that may be encountering some of the same things that I have to show them that it's okay. It's potentially normal and you'll get through it. Now in this one, now it's going to be that controversial subject for some reason, water changes. But more in particular, water changes in dirted aquariums. So what I want to do really is talk about why water changes within a dirted aquarium can be done less frequently than one of a traditional setup. Now, I am not looking to make a controversial video. I am looking to make a video that's going to be more open-minded and to try to learn from and try to understand from, so that maybe there will be less controversy when it comes to this water change subject. I don't know if that's even possible, but I'm going to try. So stick around. Water changes. Now, it's probably the first thing that we learn when we get into this hobby and how to maintain an aquarium, whether it was yesterday or 80 some years ago. And that's for a reason. Water changes are an important tool to have at our side, but what do water changes do? What are their purpose, no matter the style of tank that you keep? Well, one, obviously, they get rid of waste. They remove waste, whether it's fish waste, uneaten food, decaying plant matter, but they can also get rid of stuff like nitrates and nitrites and ammonia. They can help improve water quality and replenish minerals within your aquarium, just to name a few things. But if water changes do all these great things for your aquarium, why do we as dirted tank owners do water changes less frequently? And some people don't do them at all. Why is that compared to a traditional setup? Well, the simple answer that I can explain is really, it's because of this mimicking of a natural ecosystem that we try to create within these aquariums. Now, I mentioned this numerous times throughout previous videos of this system. I explained this system of everything working together in unison. It's no different here with the water changes. We have plants, we have substrate, we have bacteria, everything within our aquarium working in unison, working together to create better water quality. Now, let me explain this a little better. So if the plants, the substrate, and the bacteria all play a role within helping water quality within our aquariums to help us from having to do such frequent water changes, what are those roles exactly? Now, we can talk about plants first. Really, what are plants best known for? And that's really, they consume nutrients in your water column. They're probably best known for that. And if you have a dirted aquarium, you more than likely have a heavily planted aquarium, and that's for a reason for what they do. They absorb the ammonia, the nitrates, the nitrites out of your water column, for one. I can say for myself and my whole fish room, since I put up these dirted, deep substrated aquariums, I do not register nitrates in my aquariums anymore. And the plants are a big part of that. They're a big reason for that. They're natural filters. They're going to pull all that stuff out of the water column for you and help the quality of the water in general. But it doesn't just stop at nitrates and nitrites and ammonia. There's so many other things that they will pull out of the water. For instance, possibly phosphates. They can help cut down the phosphates in your water, which is also a potential leading factor to algae, which can break out. So there are so many things that these plants can do. They oxygenate the water during photosynthesis. They'll send oxygen up, and what that does, obviously, as we all know, it's going to help our inhabitants within our aquarium survive. They consume CO2, which is going to also help them grow. Now, we can also talk a little bit about the biological filtration within the aquarium and the role that they play with that. Obviously, like I said, they're natural filters. They're going to filter that water, and it plays that part within it. But also, on top of these plants, what they do, their surface area is room for beneficial bacteria to grow. And all of this all rolls in together in one, and that's the main roles of these plants, in my opinion. But let's get back to the dirt, the substrate, and the bacteria and the roles that they play. Now, with that itself, think about it, the deep substrate, the dirted substrate, what is that that's different than a normal standard aquarium? Well, the fact of the matter is you can have waste, organic waste, whether it's waste from fish, broken down plant matter, it's going to be able to break down over time with the bacteria's help and other organisms. And this also where this food web can come in handy. They can all work together to break down this waste, and it can work its way down into the soil to help feed the plants again. Again, this cycle that comes through. Well, what does that have to do with water changes? Well, it's eliminating some of this waste, where a typical aquarium doesn't have the ability to do that. Now, I know there can be some argument when it comes to that. Obviously, sand aquariums, I think that would be a little harder. Yes, some of that waste could eventually break down into the sand. Gravel, I think the argument with that would be basically, I think it could break down into the gravel, but it's going to take a lot longer for you to get the nutrients in a gravel substrate compared to the soil in order to reach the same amount that you would have in the soil. So in all, the sand substrate and the gravel substrate just do not match what you can have with a dirted aquarium and that dirted substrate. So the ability to really be able to break down waste and then use that waste in order to fuel the soil and fuel your plants, I think is highly beneficial. And again, by doing that, you're eliminating waste. You're eliminating waste that the other aquariums are not being able to eliminate, which in turn lets you limit the amount of water changes you do within your aquarium. And I think that's huge. You know, another thing to think about as well with the deep substrate, it has slow release nutrients. It slowly releases it to feed those plants. So with that, you really don't have to use fertilizers. So some people still do, and that's completely fine. But without having to use so many fertilizers, you're not pumping in a lot more different nutrients that maybe some of the plants are not consuming, and in turn, having to water change some of that stuff out. So there is big benefits with this dirted substrate in the plants. And like, again, this is all just a cycle. They all work together. And like I said, I mentioned this numerous times, that really they all work together. And they all work together for numerous reasons, but its one goal is in order to create this cycle in this ecosystem. And one big positive of it is it lets you not have to stick your hands in the water as much as you want. Now, it's not because we're lazy. It's because we're thinking and taking nature into our aquariums and letting nature do the work instead of us having to manually do it all the time. Now that I told you my opinions and reasonings behind really why us as dirted aquarists are able to do less frequent water changes compared to you guys that have the standard aquariums, I hope maybe there's a little bit more understanding behind it. You don't have to agree, and that's completely fine. We can always agree to disagree, but maybe a little bit more understanding, and that's really what I was looking for. Now, I can only speak for myself, but I know I love nature. I love the fact that I can bring slices of it from outside into my aquariums and try to create these and mimic these natural ecosystems. Now, I can say this, if you have a traditional tank, say a gravel tank or a sand substrate, and you are heavily planted, you can get away with doing less frequent water changes as well. Obviously, you just need to monitor your water qualities and see where you are, and you can create ecosystems within those aquariums as well. This isn't exclusive to just dirted tanks. Now, dirted tanks and that dirted substrate obviously are going to hold a heck of a lot more benefits to it for that ecosystem compared to the traditional setup, but there are ways to do both of them. Now, let's talk about water changes itself and the frequency, because really the frequency is really what we should be talking about. Like, I will never understand truly why water changes have to be such a big controversy when it comes to our hobby and talking points within our community. I feel like, my own personal opinion, I feel that water changes are needed no matter what style of tank you have, but it's really the frequency is what we should be talking about. Really, how often do we really need to be changing our water? Now, there are people that don't do water changes at all, and I don't judge you. I don't care. If you don't want to do water changes and it's working for you and it's working for your system, and I completely get why you don't do it, I don't disagree with you, but the reasoning behind why I believe water changes are necessary no matter what setup is really, it's our aquariums. Now, we obviously, as dirted aquarists, like I mentioned before, are striving for this ecosystem, this mimicking this natural ecosystem. The problem is we can never be completely natural within these ecosystems. Yes, we can bring all these different components in, all these different things in a recipe to make this ecosystem, and we can come dang close. Trust me, we can come dang close, but we can't create a completely natural ecosystem within our aquariums for a few reasons, in my opinion. And that's because natural bodies of water, like lakes and rivers and ponds, typically have water movement coming from the water table. There's usually an influx of water coming in and out of that water table at all times. And us with aquariums, we don't have that. Aquariums are closed systems. We don't have that influx of fresh water coming in and out. And because of that, that's why I feel like we need water changes no matter the style of tank we have. Now, I know there's going to be people that are going to say, hey, Patty, but wait a minute, there are fish that survive in bodies of water that don't have that influx of water from a water table, and you're absolutely correct. That does happen, whether it be drying up creeks or lakes or whatever, that they live in these mud puddles and they adapt to them. It's almost like the movie Jurassic Park when they say life will find a way. And that is the same in nature, really. Any type of life will try to find a way to survive and breed and continue their life cycle. But are they thriving? That's really what I want to look at there. You know, if you want to equate that to our aquariums, not doing water changes, not having that influx of fresh water, are our fish thriving or are they just surviving? No, I would say probably in most instances, us as hobbyists are going to be thriving for our fish when it comes to that situations, because it's not the same as nature. But the way I look at it is I'm responsible for all these fish and inhabitants that I have and organisms within my aquariums, and I want them to thrive. So for me, does that mean I need to do a water change for that to happen? Absolutely, and that's what I plan on doing, and that's what I do. So I think it's a balance there between thriving and surviving. And as long as all of us as hobbyists are doing what we can to make sure that our fish are the most important things and not what we do as a method within our hobby, that's the most important. Now, with frequency, I can say for sure, I know there are people that keep old dirty tanks that still do water changes, like Father Fish for say. I seen on a live stream recently in his old 20-some-year-old aquarium, he says he does water changes every 6 months in them. He talked about other aquarists that go maybe a year or two before they do them. So I really feel that water changes are necessary within our aquariums because of this. Really, because we don't have that influx of water from a water table like we would in nature. And I feel like it does so many great things for our aquariums. Now, do I feel like we need to do them every week? Absolutely not. And that's the thing when I talk about with frequency. I really feel like that is really the subject we should be talking about, especially when it comes to dirty tanks, because we don't need to do them that often. You know, I can say for myself, I do water changes anywhere between every 2 to 4 months. I think maybe 6 months is the longest I ever went. But I feel like we need to all find what best works for us. So like I said, this is just my opinion. If you don't ever want to do water changes and it is working for you, keep doing what you're doing. If you do water changes every week, no matter what style of tank you have, and it works for you, keep doing what you're doing. This is just my opinion. I really feel that water changes for me are essential. It's something that can benefit so many things, not only the plants, it helps the fish. It helps stabilize things within the aquarium. It helps with not letting things get built up within your aquarium. It can help with breeding fish as well with having that water change within the aquarium. So there are many benefits of it. Now, I completely get why hobbyists who don't do water changes do what they do. There are risks behind water changes themselves. Now, when I had Father Fish on a live stream some months ago, we talked about water changes. It was one of our talking points. And one of the things he did bring up really was that water isn't the issue, it's what's in it. Now, depending on where you live in the world and where your water source comes from, obviously that can play a big role in what you do. Now, I can say for myself where I live, I don't have issues with my water, but I don't do big water changes, and I would recommend you don't do big water changes. I only do maybe 15 or 20% at a crack at a time. Now, if there's some reason you need to do a huge water change, I'd recommend doing small ones at a time in order to stop any potential harm from maybe entering your aquarium. I don't use conditioners in my water either because I know I have no issues, but that's another thing you can think about if you need to. So, like I said, this is a big web of talking points with this water change subject, and I can understand why it becomes a controversy at points, but I really feel it shouldn't. So what I would like to do here is start wrapping it up, but I'd like people's comments. I want your opinions in this video. I want to know why you feel you need to do water changes. I want to know why you feel you don't, and everything in between. But the one thing I ask is that everyone be respectful in the comments if you do leave a comment. I'm looking for understanding. I'm looking for learning. I'm not looking for throwing rocks, and I'm not looking for pointing fingers. If there's disrespectful comments, they will be removed. I've heard numerous times in the past, probably months, people that are against dirted tanks say that the dirted aquariums, that they are going to ruin our hobby. I completely and utterly disagree with that. I think what's going to ruin our hobby someday, if it ever is closed-mindedness. I feel people need to be more open-minded and think outside the box that they live in, that the way that they do things is not the only way. There are 10 million ways to do things, and I think it's important for us all to learn from each other. And if we can do that, if we can actually open our ears, listen to each other, and learn from each other, I think this hobby can grow even more. And I think it's an important thing to do. And I think this water change situation, this stupid controversy, why people get so upset and heated about it, I think this can be a perfect platform to try to start that bridging of ideas. Now, maybe I'm just stupid and that's never going to happen, and that very well may be, but this is my attempt and try to kind of merge some of the thought process of it so people can maybe understand each other a little bit more of why we do what we do. So anyway, I hope you learned a little bit in this video. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. It's okay. We're all humans. We were born this way. We were born to be able to do what we want to do and believe what we want to believe. We just got to convey that respectfully from each other, with each other, and that's probably one of the most important things you can take from this. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. I'd greatly appreciate it. Also, I'm offering memberships. If you want to be part of the Dirted Tank crew, hit that join button. And then as always, remember to think outside the box and take a step back into nature. I hope to see you next time here at Patty's Aquatics.